Welcome to November's cooking demo. I'm Chef Brendan Krebs with Feed NC. I just want to say thank you for your purchase of the meal. This goes a long way in our mission to help combat hunger in Ardell and Rowan and North Mecklenburg counties and fund our new building, as well as my culinary students in helping them train to have job placement. So we're going to start with our Chinese Asian menu. We're going to start with dessert, which is going to be a classic Chinese egg tart, also known as a Hong Kong tart. You would typically find these in dim sum restaurants, all small bites. They would come by on a trolley with, your little desserts or your little rolls, things like that, and you just take and choose what you'd like. So we're going to start out with that. I've already prepared the pie dough, the pastry for it, just in some pastry pie tins. Bought these off of Amazon. They're just small disposable pie tins, and then made a pie crust. It's pretty much your traditional pie crust. Just a trick that I've learned if you don't want to use a fork or if you don't have any crimpers. I've got a pair of chopsticks here, and we'll just kind of crimp down the edges of the dough. Just seals it in place, gives it a little finish on the edge. And just as you do it, line up your chopstick next to the last line. So there we go. And if it hangs over a little bit, that's not a big deal. These will shrink up slightly when they are baking. These will take about 25 to 30 minutes in the oven, and it's really simple recipe. It's 4 ingredients really. It's sugar, water, evaporated milk, and eggs. So I'll just crimp down these last ones, and I'll work on the filling quick. And again, very simple. All right, these are all set to go. We'll start with the filling. I've got some eggs, 4 large eggs set out at room temperature. You want them to be room temperature. That makes it easier to work with. Helps the filling come together easier. I'll just crack these open quick, get them in. I just want to completely whisk these. These are fully mixed. Now we have a cup of evaporated milk. This also at room temperature. And the last step will be 1 cup of warm water and a half a cup of sugar. Dissolve the sugar into the water. Use the chopsticks too for this. And chopsticks are real easy to find. You go to a sushi restaurant, and you could get them. Swing by Harris Teeter, they've always got them lying around. Or whenever you get Chinese takeout, just ask for some extra chopsticks. They're handy for a lot of things that you can use around the kitchen. I whip eggs up with them, make omelets. Sometimes it's easier than a spatula. All right, so then we've got that water dissolved. The sugar. And then what you want to do is pour it in through a fine mesh sieve into a measuring cup or something with a spout on it, so it will pour. The sieve just really helps to take out any of the air bubbles. You really don't want any air bubbles in the filling. It will make it runny and weird texture. So then we just carefully pour equal amounts of the filling, and we can pour it right up to the top. This won't really expand too much. If you're hearing any barking in the background or any dog noises, we are at my house. We are, doing something a little differently this time and last with not filming on location at Feed NC, but actually doing it in the home. And my dogs, Jack and Daisy, are here, and they like to help out in the kitchen, so they may be here. And we just have to carefully bring these over and place them in an oven. Oven is preheated to 375 degrees. And set the timer, 25 minutes. And those will be good to go. All right. Next thing we're going to be working on is the T-smoked duck. So duck is going to be, it's a bit of a process. The duck is cured and then smoked. So cured is a process in which you add sodium or salt to the meat, and it draws out the moisture and slightly cooks the meat. So think salami, pastrami, ham even. Those are all rubbed, and they're usually done with what's called sodium nitrate, which is a chemical, and you don't want to eat it. You can't. It's toxic. So I found that curing with celery juice or celery seed that's been ground into a powder, that works the same way to cure, give it the nice pink color. So we've got some nice duck breasts here. These are about 6 ounces a piece. We want to leave most of the fat on the skin. We'll trim a little bit off and easily just sharp knife and just kind of trim off a little of the excess. You see this little flap here. You just want to trim that off.
What's your favorite knives?
I don't really have a preference. This one right here is a Shun. This was a gift. I have Mercer's for home knives. This is a work knife. I like the Shun. It keeps a nice edge, and it's nice and thin, so it works for a lot of different purposes. So trimmed off the fat slightly. Next thing you want to do is we're going to score the duck. So on an angle, just take your blade and just guide it through the fat layer, just through the skin layer. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want to score into the meat, but you want it to work into the fat. That way, when you're cooking this, the fat will melt and render easily. And also it will help, because we're going to rub this down, it will help to have the spices penetrate through and actually reach the meat. So then after we do the angle way, just kind of come back and do a couple straight. So you just have a little crisscross pattern. If you were to do smoked pork butts or something like that, I do the same thing with that. That helps, again, with your rub that is going to reach into the meats. There we go. I've got some rub already made up. This is a Szechuan peppercorns and the celery seed. Like I said, I ground this up to a powder. Use some kosher salt and some black pepper. The Szechuan peppercorns are not actually in the peppercorn family. They're a flower seed. They have a very citrusy, kind of woody flavor to them, and if you eat them, they're not really spicy like a peppercorn, but they'll make your mouth tingle. It'll give it kind of a numbing effect, but it also will it helps enhance flavors of other ingredients that you use with it. So this will bring out the smoke a little bit more, add a little bit of zing to it, but not like a heat. It's more of if you've ever licked a 9-volt battery, that kind of a tingle to your tongue. So they kind of look like peppercorns, but you can see there's some seeds and stem. There's a little stem and the seed that's kind of just cracked. They're pinkish brown to almost a mahogany kind of a color. So that is the Szechuan peppercorn. You don't want to use a lot, just a little goes a long way. Celery seed, just ground it up, and then black peppercorn and some kosher salt. So we're just going to take this and ground it down into a really fine powder. I used a coffee grinder. You can buy one of those, they're really inexpensive. You want to just get all sides. And you notice this is pretty dry. I let this sit in the refrigerator uncovered. I pat it down with a paper towel and then just let it sit in the refrigerator room temperature, so there's not a lot of excess liquid on this. This is kind of an involved dish because it is, now there's going to be 2 more steps with actually cooking this. It's the smoking process, and then it is stir fried, at least for the recipe that we're doing. You could also use these as a sandwich, smoked, put it on a baguette, do a little smoked duck banh mi, something like that, with some little herb mayonnaise, some shredded carrots, things like that. You could also put it on a salad, or do the big thing now is the charcuterie boards. You could slice it up thin, put it on a charcuterie board once it's smoked.
One of my favorite things I've had is the duck fat
fries.
At Kindred.
Yep. Those are real popular. Just render down your duck fat. So right now, I've got our homemade smoker. I've got a cooling rack. These are relatively inexpensive. You'd want to go out, if you're going to do a lot of smoking, go out and purchase one. You don't want to use the same one that you're going to be, making your Christmas cookies on, because it will get some black that you're not going to get off it, and the metal will impart a little bit of smokiness. So we have our smoking ingredients. We have the tea, which is the black powder in here. The other ingredients that we have is some orange peel. So dried orange peel, some white rice, and brown sugar. All of those just will impart subtle hints of different flavors. So now what we want to do is just take the duck. We're going to go skin side down on the cooling rack. We've got foil that is lined this. And again, you don't have to line it with foil, but part of the reason for the foil is this also is going to be what is going to seal in the smoke. But if you want to save your favorite wok, line it with foil, because otherwise you'll wind up with a burnt on mess. So what you just want to do is just crimp the edges over. Now you could do this on a smoker outside, but with a Traeger or pellet grill, something like that, or just an outside smoker. This is stovetop method, very traditional way of doing it. If you don't want to get your house real smoky, or if your hood fan doesn't work very well, do it outside on the grill, and that'll keep you from smoking out everything. So we just want to light our pan on high. We're going to bring that to high, and about 4 or 5 minutes, we'll start to hear some crackling and some popping in there. That'll just be the rice and things starting to cook and pop. Once we start hearing that and we see a little smoke come down, we'll turn down to a medium and let that smoke for about 20 minutes. Then you can, if you'd like, take it off the smoker, let it cool overnight or for a few hours. The best thing to do would be to let it cure for 12 to 24 hours, just to let it cure in there, but we'll just smoke for now. So I've got one that's been cured, smoked, and it's ready to go. What we want to do, see this skin is a little rubbery still. So I've got another wok going. It's been heating for a while. Skin side down. And get the skin crispy. And again, like I said, this can be served over a salad or charcuterie board. I like to just we're going to do some shiitake mushrooms, some red chilies, some snap peas, and just a little bit of a cabbage sauce. So we got the shiitakes, the chilies, snap peas, and then just some garlic. So we're just going to let our duck render out some of the fat, get a little crispy. That doesn't take too long in pan. Now we see we got some crispness to it. In the same pan that we did the duck, we're going to add just a touch of peanut oil and some sesame oil. You don't want to use a lot of sesame oil. Sesame oil's got a real pungent aroma to it. So just enough to give some flavor. And then we're going to quickly stir fry these vegetables. We'll add our garlic. And then with the duck, kind of on the bias, which means angle, and we'll just about 5 slices. And see how it's got a nice pink tinge to it that's from the duck meat itself, but you can see there's this ring right here, which is where the smoke has penetrated, the smoke ring in it. So we're going to throw this back in with our veggies. We've got a little bit of chicken stock, some brown sugar, and you can use soy sauce. I've got some tamari here. Tamari is a full soy fermented soybean, no wheat product. So if you're looking for something gluten-free, look for tamari. So we just have a quick stir fry on these. We still want some texture and the bright vibrancy of the vegetables. So there is the tea-smoked duck, just a little bit of stir-fried veg, and lots of different applications like that, like I said, but it's a very classic dish to use in Chinese cooking. Hearing a little bit of cracking going on there. Should get, yeah, there's some smoke coming out. All right, our next dish is a honey ginger glazed salmon. It's about a 2-pound side of salmon. The tail end is off. So typically this is about this long. There would be a triangular kind of more section of tail, which tapers down thinner. The butcher that I got this from took the tail off for me. But I'm just going to show a quick, easy way to skin. I've kind of just reached with my hand a little bit, was able to pull back some of the skin, but some of it's still sticking. So you just want to grab firmly with your hand, and you just want to use a sharp knife, and you let the knife do the work. If any of you guys are fishermen or anything, you know just a basic filleting and skinning of a fish. So just let the knife do the work, and just keep the blade of the knife angled towards the board, and pull firmly on the skin, and just firmly pull through, and your skin should come out with no meat. You don't want to lose any of the meat in this. So with the salmon skin, you could use this. You could cut it in little triangles, stir fry it, use it as a garnish. It gets real crispy like a pig skin or chitlin or something like that. So when buying fish, you want your fish to be, first of all, shouldn't smell like fish. Fish should be very clean smelling, should smell like the ocean, should smell like salt water, not like the ocean at low tide. It should smell like salt water, very crisp, and it should be very firm to the touch. If you're touching it, if you press in, it shouldn't mush down. It should, a little bit of give to it, but be very firm. The skin, if you're skin on, your scales should be able to mainly hold on. So if I take this and run my hand up, you don't see a lot of scales coming off. The scales are coming off a little bit, but you want the scales to be firmly in place. That means the fish is very fresh, and good for it, good to eat. Very firm. So then there's a couple different ways you could cut this. I just cut into about a 6-ounce piece. So if you could cut it like that, or some places will cut on the bias, that will give it more surface. Cook it this way, but for the purpose of this dish, we'll just cut some nice, about 6-ounce pieces. All right, set these aside for a second. Notice I've got a towel under the board. This just helps it to keep from sticking. So we're gonna do a little ginger quick. Easy way to peel ginger is just take a spoon and press, and there's some nubs, but just work around the nub and with the edge of your spoon, if the ginger is cold or if you put it in the freezer for a little bit, it's a little bit easier to handle, but don't need much. Once you've got your little nub of ginger peeled to where you want, just keep the ginger in an airtight container, Ziploc bag, something like that. It'll keep for around a week, week and a half before you need to use it. Grocery stores and things, usually they don't sell small nubs of ginger, but if you go to an Asian specialty store, you'll be able to get, just like a thumb of ginger, and not a whole hand of ginger. So that'll be helpful. So then, this just takes a little bit of practice. You just want to slice thin. And again, a sharp knife helps with this tremendously. Sharp knife is going to be your best friend in situations like this. It'll keep you from losing your fingertip. So once you cut it into small matchsticks, just come back across the other way. If you cut this too small, it'll cook up very, very quickly and not give you that ginger bite that you want. It'll just kind of be like a mush. So you want to have it finely chopped, but not to a paste, not to a paste consistency. So I've got some already cut up here too, and I've got some garlic chopped in there. Same thing that I did with the ginger, you can do with the garlic, just very carefully cut. And again, that will take some practice, but you'll be able to get that. So now just got some honey and some oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is a fermented oyster with some soy and monosodium glutamate in it, and it's used in a lot of Asian cuisine. It's got the word for it would be umami, which is sort of a rich flavor to it with just a little bit of salt to it. So we've got some oyster sauce and some honey. So my honey crystallized a little bit. So a trick to do to uncrystallize the honey so you can keep using it is there's two ways. Shortcut way, about 30 seconds in a microwave dish, and it will it'll melt the crystals and bring your honey back to a good consistency. The longer way is to take the bottle jar of honey and place it under some hot running water and let that run out, and but that will take a little bit longer. And some people just don't have time, so go shortcuts not as much as possible, but some things you can shortcut on. So we just got a glass baking dish. You can use a metal baking dish or a pan if you'd like. We're just going to put a little oil in the bottom just to help the fish not stick. And this is just the peanut oil that I use to stir fry the vegetables in. So with peanut oil, a lot of people are very against peanut oil now with peanut allergies and things. Actually, the peanut oil that is used, because it's so refined, there is none of the protein and enzyme that you would typically be allergic to in a peanut. So peanut oil is perfectly safe to eat, even if you are allergic to peanuts. There is none of that protein in it, none of that enzyme that will cause you to have that allergic reaction. So don't be too afraid of peanut oil. The reason I use peanut oil too, it doesn't have a real strong flavor, but it has a real high smoke point. The smoke point is the point where the oil will start to burn and lose its properties and catch fire. So you want something, you don't want to use olive oil, which has a lower smoke point for things like this. Plus olive oil has a unique flavor to it. Again, we're going to just take this, we'll throw this in the oven, 375. Our egg tarts are looking pretty good. I had a little bit of salmon from earlier. So this is what the salmon will look like when it's done. And this will just be served up over some jasmine rice and baby bok choy. The baby bok choy it's very tender. It's in the cabbage family. You'll probably have seen in the grocery store the larger heads of bok choy. Those are typically used in your stir fries, things like that. They're cut up, but they have a bigger head to them. The leaf is a lot more fibrous. These are very tender. These are good to just steam or bake in the oven with a little bit of water, glaze them with a little bit of sugar water. I just bake them in the oven for a little bit, or steam, stir fry, lots of different ways to do this. Cut them up. They're nice in a salad, or could cut them up and do a banh mi. Just cut this up in a slaw and put this on a baguette, make a little duck banh mi. So our duck is smoking and our tarts are done. So these are the egg tarts. They've domed slightly, but they'll fall. Give them about 10 to 15 minutes to cool before you eat them. They are served sometimes warm, room temperature, never hot, but room temperature warm, or you can leave them overnight and serve them. They're a decent little breakfast snack, so just different ways to use them. But this is our meal. We've got the salmon, the tea smoked duck, and the egg tarts. Thank you for joining us for the November cooking presentation. And again, thank you for the purchase of the meals. It does go a long way in supporting Feed NC and the mission. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My email is bkrebs@feednc.org, or you can always just stop in and see me Monday through Friday. I'm there from 7 until 3. So thank you very much.